Carnell from Carnell Holly Pictures. So I've watched your content. With you being knowledgeable in the fandom, how often is it that you have to let people know that you know your stuff?
Every single day. In fact, people come to my page to tell me I don't know anything. It's very constant, and I think a big part of developing my content is considering what questions are going to be asked. I speak in a way of like familiarity when I speak on certain subjects. Like, we all know what we're talking about, but because the assumption is that I don't know what I'm talking about, I find myself explaining myself more than actually talking about the topic. So, you know, my biggest goal of this year is to really push the type of content that's still familiar, but it's sad, but to figure out a way to like tell everyone like, I know exactly, here are my credentials, and, you know, still be able to have a conversation.
JB and JB versus the World, what inspired you to get into the creative space in the first place?
Yeah, Issa Rae. I watched Insecure, the TV show, and she was turning 29. And she was like, before I turn 30, I need to do all these things. And it kind of put a fire under my butt. Like, I was in a totally different profession. I was working in like healthcare, and I was like, well, what's the harm in doing some videos on YouTube and just, you know, feeling it out? And I didn't realize how much people really wanted to hear the voice of Black women. I always thought that we weren't welcomed. So just a response to my initial videos kind of kept me going and moving.
What is your favorite part of the content creation process?
Meeting, honestly, conventions. I grew up in the convention space. Like, I'm a child of a nerd. And so I've never been on this side of it where I'm like a creator, where people know me. And I've never been at a convention like MomoCon that has so many Black people at it. And so just being able to be in my space, being able to connect with people, almost all of my close friends now I met on the internet. And I really love the connection and the fellowship that comes with being at conventions.
You being a child of a nerd, how did that contribute to your nerdy origin story? Like, what was the thing that you saw young that was like, got it?
That did it?
Yes.
I want to say, I want to be cool and be like Milestone. I read Static and it changed my life. But I really think it was a cartoon. I'm pretty sure it was Batman the Animated Series. I like really did it. I know I'm wearing a shirt, but like this is by coincidence. But I really think that's what like really got me locked in. And you refer to me?
So, being a Black woman, you got ushered in and opened the door for many other Black women creators, and you are stepping into becoming a legend in your own right. But one of the things I really appreciate about you is you also do a great job of highlighting independent comic books, Black creators, Black voice actors, Black screenwriters, and everything else. You recently talked to Rodney Barnes. That was a great interview. How did you even get into creating the fighting words and getting a chance to sit down into that?
Like the Fighting Word show?
Yes.
So there was a stint before, while I was still working full time, I was working at a marketing firm. And so we used to run like commercials and YouTube shows for like Nike. So I knew the bones of how to run the show. My biggest barrier was the teams that I were on was probably, we had a budget of like $500,000, $1 million, and a team of like 15 to 20 professionals. And I had saved up $5,000. And so I was like, well, it's time to cash in all of my favors. And so I got a lot of people to, 2 people to donate their time, 3 people to donate their time. And I was able to just use that $5,000 on an editor and a DP, a director. And everything else was favors. Rodney Barnes appreciated me highlighting his comic book, and and so did everyone else. I just because I was highlighting them and they was able to get eyes on them, they were willing to do me that favor. And it was really just a moment of community fighting words, and it felt like accumulation of all the work I've been doing over the past couple of years.
Thank you.
Well,
Mac Jenkins, Moana Nui podcast. When you look at the time and effort that it's taken you to go from your initial crawling to where you are now, which I personally would say is almost at running a marathon, do you have an idea of where you want to go next with your platform? Or is it kind of, I'm going to ride this for a while and let the inspiration grab me and then make a decision?
Yeah, I'm definitely hoping that at one point Fanboy Fighter becomes an entity that's self-sufficient without me. So I'm really working this year on building a community. I have a Discord, I have a show. I'm hoping I'll get to a point where I can get enough money to fund other projects, comic books, things like that, where fanboy fighting becomes just synonymous with inclusivity and people who advocate for it. Thank you.
So how important is it to you knowing that you are representation for the next generation of young Black boys and Black girls growing up, and they'll be able to see you and understand that they can become you and they get to see representation of themselves?
Yeah, it's a little bit of pressure, you know what I mean? But it's very humbling and kind of surreal. I think every day I wake up, I'm like, I'm here. The things that I'm doing could potentially help other people. And I think that's also why I like coming to cons, to be reminded like why I'm doing the work. Because when I'm home on the internet, I'm in this like, you know, controlled space where I'm reading comments, I'm seeing people who don't really appreciate what I'm doing. And it becomes difficult to understand like why am I doing it? Why is it important? But I love being able to show that like Black people are not a monolith, women are not a monolith, and just how we can be different, how we can enjoy ourselves, just the different facets of our life.
To a young creative that's seen this interview, what message would you have for them if they want to follow in your footsteps?
I think the biggest lesson I learned is one, just start moving, start creating, but also be open to critiques, as in listen to critiques, but don't ever listen to the reason why. So I will listen to a critique where people say, I didn't like this aspect or this piece, but I'm not listening to why they didn't like it, because that's personal. You know what I mean? And you may not know why I did something, but it is a good note to know that like something is off, or this is something that an audience member or people may notice, you know?
Chris Carpenter, Shot/Shinobi, how do you deal with people, whether it's dealing with racism, genderism, sexism?
I don't know, man. I try my best. I think I try my best to be respectful and block. I'm a big blocker, like every day, to the point where TikTok disabled blocking for me for like weeks, because I'll block you at the drop of a dime. But I try to educate as best I can. And I mean, personally, for my mental health, I just try to remember that this is not real. Like the internet is not real. And what people are saying are a very specific, loud, small group. But I do other things for my mental health. Like I exercise, I read, I listen to music and just try to center myself. And look to my community as well. Last question.
James Herndon, Moana Nui podcast. You do a lot of previews and reviews of content that comes out, whether it's movies, TV shows, animation. How do you, like, what's the process of going through that when you watch something and it doesn't really click with your enjoyment factor? Like, how do you still try to maintain neutrality as far as giving a fair and honest review of something?
I don't think I'm neutral. Y'all think I'm neutral?
I mean, you like what you like, yeah, but I mean, I can tell that sometimes it's something like like it to a certain point, but not all the way. Like,
oh, I try to be transparent about it. Like, or even if I know it's terrible, I think that's closer to what you're saying. Like, if I've watched the project, I'm like, I know objectively this is terrible, but me as a fan of this specific thing,
right.
I enjoyed it. I'll just say it, and I think transparency and being open is the best way to go. I think the most difficult time I've ever had was for Madam Web. I met the director, and then she personally invited me. I interviewed the director, and then she personally invited me to the premiere. And so, but I'd already seen the movie, and I knew it was ass. I'm sorry, can I curse? I didn't mean to say that. But I knew it wasn't good. And I just connected with this woman, and I already knew what it meant to poorly review a woman-led project. And there was a moment where I was like, maybe I just will be quiet about it. I won't review it because if you don't have something nice to say, and I have a moral obligation not to lie. And then Straw Hat Goofy put a video up, and I was like, I can't be sitting here lying or quiet and like, Mickey Mouse is over here, speaking up. That goes against who I am. So I think it's just reminding myself, like, hey, who are you? Why do people come to you? Because some people pay their last to go see these movies, and they're looking for me to say, where can I put this money? Like, Frankie, we have similar tastes, be honest, and I could save someone their last bit of entertainment money, or tell them to shuttle it to something that they would actually enjoy. Thank you guys. This is really cool.